In the quiet, unassuming hills of West Virginia lies a tale that has haunted a town for decades. September 12th, 1952, Flatwoods, West Virginia. A night forever etched in terror. A night when an otherworldly presence descended upon this sleepy town. What did they see? Was it a visitor from another world? A creature from the depths of the unknown? Or a manifestation of our darkest fears?
They saw something that had the shape of a man, only a lot larger, and creature with claws. You know, they all drew similar pictures later for the press and that sort of thing.
What I saw, it looked like the B-2 rockets that the Germans flew over and hit London with. That's what it looked like, almost exactly. Of course, when we saw it, everybody was petrified, and you don't remember a whole lot.
The point I want to get across is it was nothing alive, and it was a mechanical thing. It was pointed at the top and had portholes, which I've said in every interview I ever had. It looked like on a ship porthole, and in behind that porthole there was light. You could see in behind, but I couldn't see anything. Of course, just one quick look and we was gone.
I do not have a theory. All I know, it was mechanical. I know it was a little early in history to see something like that, but other than that, I can't explain it.
The evidence points to something extraordinary. This is not more folklore. There is a haunting truth behind the legend. Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown, where reality and nightmare intertwine. The Flatwoods Monster, a legacy of fear. Now streaming.
And welcome back to STM Live, everybody. Great to see you all this evening. My name is Aaron. I still have the privilege of being your host. Great to see so many of our squad members in the audience, and a big shout out to our newest squad member, Becky Cross. Thank you for making what we do at STM possible, guys. We really appreciate you. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. We have a couple of fantastic guests, and welcome to the first Thursday evening, official recurring Thursday evening for STM Live. This is our brand new time slot. We got bumped by, well, you know, something actually really cool and exciting, Squatchin' USA. Since we have Wednesday releases coming for you guys on a regular basis, that is one of the reasons we've moved STM Live to Thursdays. And this week we had the privilege of streaming a multi-hour Bigfoot Beyond the Trail marathon for you guys, which is still available. You can still watch that. That will remain up for the foreseeable future. So check that out. Please enjoy it. And then get ready this coming weekend on Sunday for Bigfoot Beyond the Trail, Behind the Trail. You guys have been asking for behind-the-scenes content. A couple of you have asked for a behind-the-scenes documentary, and Alex made one for you because he just loves you so much. So check that out. It's going to be great. Our squad members have access to that right now. Squad members is the term we use to affectionately refer, English today, please, excuse me, to our YouTube channel members. So you can sign up to check that out now or wait for the public release on Sunday. It's going to be really cool. I guess there's not a whole lot else going on except, oh wait, there is. Pre-orders are now available for The Legend of Ogopogo, Canada's Loch Ness Monster by our good friend, Mr. Jason Hewlett. Jason is a noted author. He is the co-founder of the Canadian Paranormal Society. He is the co-creator of the award-winning web series, We Want to Believe. I just got done reading his bio a little while ago, so that's why I'm able to remember that. You can pre-order your copy of The Legend of Ogopogo right now over at the Small Town Monsters shop. Or you can come out and pick up your copy in person in like a week, you guys, at Monster Fest 2, June 28th and 29th, downtown Canton, Ohio, at the Canton Palace Theater and Hilton Doubletree Inn. You can get your tickets right now at stmmonsterfest.com or at the door, but they will be cheaper if you get them in advance. It will be the first place ever to get your hands on a copy of The Legend of Ogopogo. Have it signed by the author, because Jason is coming all the way from Canada to hang out with us. And we just today announced something I'm super excited about. Mr. Ryan Sprague of Somewhere in the Skies has been added to the live podcast lineup. Very excited about that. So come meet Ryan, come meet Jason, come hang out with me, as well as at least one of tonight's guests. I actually haven't asked Andrew if he's going or not at Monster Fest 2. It's going to be great. All right, so now that I've spoiled it, please welcome tonight's guests. First, a returning gentleman. You've seen him here once or twice before. You may be familiar with him. He's a director, writer, researcher, producer, guy that wears a cool hat. My good buddy, Mr. Eli Watson. What's up, brother?
Hello, friend. I feel like I've been on your show a lot this month.
You have. I think you were here 2 weeks ago.
And like the week before that one, too.
Yeah. I got to go back. Yeah, the one before that. I got to go back and count because it's either you or Alex that's been on here the most. I can't remember which. It's a contest. It's a contest. But anyway, also joining us tonight, very special guest. You may know him from a recent episode of The Lore You Know. You definitely know him if you are in any way interested in the Flatwoods Monster, which is one of the things we're talking about tonight. Mr. Andrew Smith. How are you, brother?
I'm great. How about you all?
I'm fantastic, man. Will you very quickly, I should have told you earlier I was going to do this. Will you just very quickly tell us who you are and what you do for anyone who may not be familiar with the work of Mr. Smith?
Sure. My name is Andrew Smith. I'm the curator of the Flatwoods Monster Museum located here in Sutton, West Virginia. It's actually where I'm broadcasting from right now. We just upgraded our internet, so hopefully this goes well. We've been established here since October of 2018. Let's see. The Flatwoods Monster Museum is a project of the Braxton County Convention and Visitors Bureau, of which I'm the executive director. And I'm featured in the Flatwoods Monster documentary that you were just talking about by Small Town Monsters that's now live on YouTube for free. And let's see, I was on which Bigfoot project? I got thrown into a Small Town Monsters Bigfoot project as well because I helped make some connections. And since my buddies from Small Town Monsters were in town, I was hanging out, which turned into now I needed to be an on-camera personality for the project. So I didn't know I was going to be in that one.
It's funny how that goes, right? You're just,
yeah.
you know, yeah, I'll put you in touch with some people. Next thing you know, here's your microphone. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. So I wanted to mention those things because your audience has probably watched both of those, or if not, they really should. So that's probably why they would know me best.
Fantastic. Well, we're really excited to have you tonight, man. Thank you so much. I know this was kind of last minute. I think Heather texted you like 2 days ago and was like, you want to do the live stream? So appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it was no problem at all. It was great. I get a text like that. I immediately yell to my wife wherever she is in the house and say, honey, am I free Thursday at 9 p.m.? She said, yeah. Wrote back, good to go.
I do the same thing. And also, Eli, thank you. You know, of course, you're always coming through in the clutch. I appreciate it.
Yes. Scott Dieterle, I think, wrote it the best. The contractually obligated Eli.
Oh, yes. Yes, he is. I guess you could technically say no, but then, you know, then you'd have to say why. And I mean, you wouldn't have to. It's your life. You gotta have boundaries.
Nah, dude. I live and breathe STM.
Yeah. Someone asked me what I do for a living the other day, and I was like, let me send you some links. But anyway, we do have a question from Scott, our squad member. As always, guys, please drop your questions for myself, for Eli, and of course for Andrew in the chat. Not every day we have the proprietor of the Flatwoods Monster Museum with us. So we do have a question from Scott. Aaron, where will you be live streaming from next Thursday? The answer is I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the live stream next week. I was thinking about that as I was sitting here waiting for this one to start. So stay tuned for updates. That's a great question.
Maybe the contractually obligated Eli.
Maybe. It might be from an airport, actually. I'm still working out that timeline. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. So here's a question I would love to hear from both of you guys on, and then also from the audience while you guys are thinking up your questions. The Flatwoods Monster. This is a big case. This is the first thing we're going to talk about tonight. We are going to, of course, get into the latest episode of Sasquatch Unearthed, Land Between the Lakes, Bigfoot and Dogman Wars. That's the other thing we're talking about tonight. So I forgot to mention that at the jump. I'm excited about this Flatwoods stuff. But what about the Flatwoods incident is so captivating to so many people? Because this is something that's become literally a global phenomenon. It shows up in Nintendo games. It shows up on gift store shelves all over the place. You know, a lot of our artist friends in the community have really embraced it and produced incredible renditions of it. So what, in your guys' opinion, is so captivating about this case?
Eli, you want to go first?
That? No, you got it, man.
Okay. Well, I think it's kind of twofold. One, in the the grand scheme of history of cryptids and the unknown, and aliens and spaceships and that sort of thing. It's kind of an early story, so I think that did a lot to help sort of spread the word of it far and wide early, which kind of helped it root, in the public subconsciousness enough to keep appearing in books and things like that from the 50s all the way, the 70s and then today. So, because the way that I always like to think about it, and maybe I could be wrong because I certainly don't know everything there is to know about all of ufology and that sort of thing. But, before the incident took place in 1952, there were really only a few other noteworthy happenings that took place that made national news. And, one of them was Roswell, and it was pretty quickly, squashed. So while it made a big splash, it kind of didn't resurface a lot until later. Whereas the Flatwoods Monster case was able to sort of get traction and get spread far and wide. The way that I understand it is within 2 weeks of the incident taking place, even back in 1952, there were international reporting about it. The AP article that hit the wire in the United States was sent all over and translated, and filling newspapers worldwide. And I don't know if it's just because at that time there weren't a lot of, maybe they needed to fill space. Who knows? But in one way or another, it got out there. And then the second thing that you kind of touched on, talking about artists really holding on to the Flatwoods Monster and doing their own renditions and things like that, is it's so unique, just looking and so uniquely described. Yet at the same time, there's enough holes in the description that allows for a lot of artistic freedom. So if you are interested in these sorts of things, the details you do have are wild and juicy and capture the imagination. And then every hole between each one of those descriptive details is a place that you can fill. And whether they knew it or not, I actually think the majority of all writers and investigators, artists that have done anything that have to do with the Flatwoods Monster, I actually feel like where there was a decent amount of voids in detail, whether in description or in the story itself, those artists and authors and investigators kind of got to put themselves into those gaps and make the work that they want to make. So I think that's also one of the reasons why when you read a lot of the different sort of retellings of the story, it can vary quite a bit depending on who you're hearing it from. In the same way with what it looks like, it can vary quite a bit depending on the artist that created the depiction. So personally, I feel like those two things caused it to be as big of a story and an interesting subject as it is.
What do you think, Eli?
What a great answer that was. What can I say to that?
Yeah, show's over. I'm done.
I mean,
cheers.
It's just a cool story. It's a cool story. For me, certainly one of the more popular cryptozoology cases. I mean, even me growing up in California, I know of the Flatwoods Monster. You know what I mean? It's like, and so it's just it's I don't know. It's got such a cool look to it, and there's so much mystery. Like, where did it go? Where, it's like there's plenty of spots for your imagination to take hold. I think, kind of like what Andrew was saying. So I think that's just ripe. Plus, I mean, what was that? 1958?
52.
Oh, 52. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So you're coming off. Yeah, you're like height of that UFO era right there. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah, you're kind of in a weird phase there, actually, in terms of UFO history, because you're coming out of the contactee phase, kind of into the abduction phase, which I don't think the abductee thing would really take off until the 60s. But so yeah, there was just a lot of questions. We didn't know what extraterrestrials were, or, and not even that would be necessarily the first case. Here, let me go on a little rant. Last year when I was doing Mysteries and Monsters and doing the George Adamski case, one of the things that I learned, because George Adamski was the most famous UFO contactee, basically he met Space Jesus. And one of the things that I learned very early on was that the first assumption when people started seeing UFOs in the sky was not that they were extraterrestrials. Actually, that was not the first assumption. People thought they were other aircraft, and it makes sense when you consider, the history of the 20th century, and a lot of places didn't have electricity at the start of the century. To then you have World War II, people are fighting in, airplanes and jets, and we're dropping nuclear bombs on other countries. It's like people didn't know how far technology went. So people saw these UFOs and assumed that they were either, Russians or I guess the Soviets at the time, or even our own spacecraft. I think, I forget what book it was, but it was written by Donald Kehoe that really popularized the idea that these were extraterrestrials. And so I think you even get some of that with Flatwoods. People didn't know if it was like some sort of mechanical suit that somebody was in, or maybe it was an extraterrestrial. We don't know. But yeah, I think it just hit the cultural zeitgeist at the right time, and it also had the added benefit of not getting covered up immediately like Roswell,
Right.
or Aztec. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing that kind of keys into what one of the things you were talking about, Eli, is I don't know if this is true, but somebody told this to me many years ago, and it's kind of rang true ever since. Is they said to me, it had this sighting not take place in 1952, say it take place in the mid 60s, late 60s, or 70s. He said, I bet, the guy I was talking to, almost regardless of what any of the witness said they saw, any depictions would have been like little green men or grays, because like by that time, the subject of alien had kind of become codified. Whereas in 52, it was like you were saying, it was so Wild West of it all that it could be anything, which I think it is probably one of the reasons why I don't want to say that the Flatwoods Monster that was encountered in the woods that night didn't look like our depictions, because in all honesty and reality, I have no idea. But the depictions that we have are the ones that we have. And had it not taken place when it took place, we wouldn't have what we have today, and something beautiful would have been lost. Because at the end of the day, my heart is kind of in art. I've been an artist my whole life, and the thought of like the possibility of that Flatwoods monster not being drawn the way it was drawn in 1950 by those artists, based off Kathleen May's testimony, that God knows how much of it they even got right. But had they not done it, what we would have been robbed of. I mean, because just look behind Aaron, the monster behind that squishy. I mean, we wouldn't have that. And just that alone. I mean,
It's actually my
that's worth
son's,
it.
but he doesn't know that yet. So
it's the same way like this this costume behind me. I just the world would have been a whole lot less interesting without that one single drawing.
Mm-hmm. And it really, one thing about this case that is captivating to me is it strikes a chord with the UFO niche and also in the cryptozoology niche, because it kind of straddles the line, of being a UFO story, a contactee event, but also an encounter with a very strange being that we still don't know what it was. So, and that may be a topic of discussion in an upcoming episode of UFOs Revisited. I don't know, maybe. Couple comments I want to catch up on here. Shout out to our friend Lycan Weeb. I'll always love Lycan Weeb making an appearance. Love it. For throwing some support to the channel. We really appreciate you, my friend. And a shout out to Keith Heald for joining the squad. Welcome, Keith. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate you. Comment from our friend Fred. I'm not sure if you guys have seen my comments on your videos. We do see them, Fred, I promise you. But they really say how much love I've got for what you guys do and the content you create. It is literally second to none in quality. That means a lot to us, Fred. Thank you very, very much. Comment from our friend Scott Walker. I think this is important, so I'm going to just put this out here. Hey guys, how's it going? I'm a big Sasquatch believer. Do you think there are still Bigfoots in the Patterson-Gimlin film site? All these things I just passed through, or they don't live there now? What do you guys think? We'll do a quick little diversion into Bigfoot territory for a second. Still Bigfoot in the Patterson-Gimlin film site area, or maybe not?
Yeah. I don't know about the exact area, but yeah, definitely having been there 3 years ago now, we had, me, Alex, Hieronymus, Jonathan Easley, we all had activity out there. When we were there, some of the craziest stuff I've ever had happen to me, and I've shared this story on the podcast before and on other podcasts and stuff. I don't think we want to go too much into that, but definitely there in the actual film site, though. That's what's weird about it is the actual film site itself is at the bottom of a ravine. It's a creek bed, and the water still runs through it and stuff. And it is a game trail there. Bears and cougar use it. But if we're taking into some consideration, what makes the most sense is these things kind of follow the ridge lines. I think they're going to be up in the mountain above the creek rather than in the creek itself or in the creek bed. But they would come down there to get water. So, which is what many people think Patty was doing that day.
Very interesting. Oh no, we lost Andrew. Well, that's all right. We
were talking about
there he
Bigfoot.
is. Yeah, he got bored. He was like, "Okay, I'm over this." Welcome back, Andrew.
I was bragging about my internet earlier. Maybe I talked too soon.
Hey, it's not an episode of STM Live if we don't have a streaming issue, like I told you earlier. So no, you're good.
I don't really, in general, on any subject, Bigfoot, I don't really feel comfortable weighing in much. The only thing I'll say as far as Bigfoot goes is I hope Bigfoot's real. And I will say people that I've grown up with who I've just learned in the past like 2 or 3 years, two different people, completely independent, one a family member of mine and one an old acquaintance going all the way back to high school. Both they don't necessarily claim they had a Bigfoot encounter, but they don't know what else you would call it. And both of them, are kind of like mainly men. Both of them are like, avid sportsmen, outdoorsmen. One of them, I would say, is particularly large and scary. And both of them, when recounting their story, I get pretty scared. Or at least they're very serious. I don't know. Boy, I want there to be Bigfoot so bad. But I will tell you, I'm not prepared to see it. I could tell you a funny story about while I was hoping to have a Bigfoot encounter, turned out to see something else, but still had the wits scared out of me and had to go back inside anyway.
It's like a simulated Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah, except it was I think it was a coyote, a small coyote that just walked a little too close to me and stepped on some leaves in the pitch black dark. That thing, whatever, it sounded massive, but it was the tiniest little thing, and boy, did it scare me back inside the cabin.
Hey, fight or flight is there for a reason. So I do see a couple questions about Dogman. I'm going to save those for the Dogman centric portion of our discussion. Shout out to Vincent. Oh, sorry.
Is there a Dogman centric? Are we going there?
There's a Dogman themed portion of my notes that I intend to get.
Oh, wait. Yeah, because we're not just talking about Flatwoods Monster today.
Yeah.
I even forgot we're talking about. Yeah.
This is the new and improved STM Live, where I try to fit 2 full-length discussions into 1 hour-long show and also take live audience questions. Hi, I'm a boy from the internet. Shout out to our squad member Vincent Ellison for also kicking some support to the channel. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Always good to see you hanging out in the chat. Let's see. Just want to make sure I don't miss any important questions. All of the audience questions are important. You guys are popping off in the chat tonight. I love it. Great to see you all. Very cool. I did see a comment from Scott that he was hanging out on another live stream and the people over there were not cool. I've lost it now, so I don't have the quote, but he did say, I just want to talk Bigfoot with you. So I'll just say to Scott and everybody else, you're welcome to come talk Bigfoot with us anytime. We don't do, rude stuff around here. We don't like that. We try to keep it friendly. So I've got one last question, Flatwoods, for you guys. And this is just something we talked a little bit about, but can we talk about the impact that this had on the surrounding area, kind of going into the modern day? I'm sure Andrew has some thoughts on that. And, Eli, I know you've been down that way. So what do you guys think about how this incident still affects the area today?
Eli, you want to go?
There's the Flatwoods Festival, right? Andrew, you live right in the hub of it, man. You run it, man.
That's true. So I think, let's see, how did it affect it? Well, I would say a lot of Central West Virginia, not even just the really close surrounding area, but a lot of Central West Virginia, as this story spread, whenever it was still pretty early on, it really caused a lot of fear for a little while. There was, there were folks that were, afraid to come out of their house at night because, there was a lot of unknown. The whole thing was a mystery. They didn't have 70 plus years to look back on all of this that we do. It was all still very fresh, very new, and very, for lack of a better word, possible. So I think a lot of people were really afraid for a while. And then I also think that as a little bit of a coping mechanism and a response to that, over the next few years, I think a lot of folks tried really, really hard to just write it off as some sort of prank, as some sort of misidentification, even to the point of like disparaging, the witnesses, they must have been drinking or whatever.
Yeah, a couple of kids on a weeknight were just drinking.
Right. Yeah, like 9-year-olds with 32-year-olds are drinking. It makes all the sense in the world, but anyway.
It would make you see a space monster. Sorry, please continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. So like it's my opinion that that's where a lot of that sort of sort of opinion of the story and of the witnesses came from, was a response of like, I either have to, we either have to say that this didn't really happen and mock it, or we have to face it, and facing it's kind of a little too scary. Personally, I feel like that's where it comes from. I could be wrong. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a PhD, but that's just what feels right to me. However, as time got to go on and sort of, as they say, time heals wounds, you could get a decent amount of perspective. And locally, most people really, really highly regard what the legend of the Flatwoods Monster has become, regardless of necessarily where it fits in facts of exactly what happens or what happened. It's almost irrelevant at this point. people that live here know that if somebody in a whole other country knows anything about their town, they know that it's this. And you know, we can all have our things that we wish our area was known for, but at the end of the day, you're still living in reality, and what you're known for is what you're known for. So you may as well be okay with it because it's not changing. So I think that's the general feeling now is I think people see, you know, like last year we started, we have a little clicker and we started, you know, clicking this thing, you know, every time someone walks through the door. And last year, you know, we tracked just under 12,000, you know, visitors to the museum. And nobody that lived in this area would have ever thought that would have ever happened. So, you know, I just think in general, it's made a big impact, and as time's gone on, a very positive impact. And I feel like the average local, at least respects it, if not, you know, is in absolute love with it.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple tourist attractions as well. I mean, you have those Adirondack chairs.
Yeah.
They're spread out. And then one of my favorites is the Spot. I got the cup.
That's what you went and grabbed. I was like, what did you grab? I saw you come back.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Which, funny enough, this one actually has a typo. It says Flatwoods WY. So Flatwoods, Wyoming.
That's cool.
Misprint.
Hopefully they've gotten that figured out. Yeah, then maybe you might have a rarity.
Yeah, I know. I was like, dang.
Mine doesn't say that. Mine says the right thing.
Yeah.
Because some of this stuff is like legit collector's items. Like people will hunt some of it down, and like, you know,
Yeah.
I collected toys before I had a child. Now I collect baby toys. So like, yeah, I paid more than I should have for an action figure. I get it. You know, it's cool stuff. It's cool stuff.
Yeah. Blinko did a limited run of Flatwoods Monster decanters. I want to say in like 2021. And whenever they were first for sale, they were like $130. And they asked me how many that I wanted. And my first thought was like, I don't know, $130. I probably don't need a lot of those. I said, I'll take 5. So the first day that we had them for sale after we had announced them, a lady came in at 10 o'clock that day and bought 3 of them.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. So we knew real quick, well, we messed up. And they planned to sell 2,000 of them, but they sold like around 8,000. And now those command like $1,000 if you want to buy one.
Jeez.
It's crazy. But Blinko is a big name in glass. And then you combine that with the rare, you know, Flatwoods Monster item. And so now you're talking crazy money.
To the person that wants that, you know, in that niche, it's a pretty specific niche, but to that person, that's like, you know, shut up and take my money level stuff. Yep. My Braxy is from Strange Fellows. We
have one of those on display. They were kind enough to send us one.
Yeah, it's great quality, beautiful piece. They sent it to us when my little boy was born as a welcome to the world present. So
that's awesome.
It's a favorite. Yeah. So we're gonna.
Wait, real quick. Speaking of Flatwoods merch, there's the Kickstarter exclusive, the small town Kickstarter exclusive statue. Yeah, which is hard to come by. That was before my time at STM, but I did find it on eBay once for about $90, and I didn't buy it.
Oh, dude!
Yeah, you should have. That's like lower than original price.
I know.
A Gene St. Jean original. Those are individually numbered, man.
I know.
I've got one of those right over there in a display case.
That one's a rare one.
Yeah.
I remember I was at Seth's for the UFO shoot recently. We stopped at his place to do something with the crew, and I remember seeing it on one of his shelves, and I was like, wow, there it is. It's closest I'll ever be to one, probably. And I didn't even steal it. So we are going to change gears. We're going to switch over to the other release we're talking about tonight, directed and produced by my good buddy, Mr. Eli Watson, the latest episode of Sasquatch Unearthed, Beast of the Land Between the Lakes, Bigfoot, and Dogman Wars, with this super cool graphic cover by our friend Zach Palmisano. He makes all of our graphics over here, so shout out to Zach. But Eli, can you give us... Oh, wait, I was going to ask you to summarize it, but we actually have a fun little preview clip from that episode that we can run real quick. So let's check it out.
Through his blind, knocked him down, and he had some injuries. Immediately, the park shut the area down and cited that the bridge was unsafe to travel, and this is a bridge that takes you down to the area of the peninsula that is totally blocked off. Hellbent Holler has also found an area that was adjacent to this that was shut down back in the 1980s for the same reason. There was an attack there as well. Now they are attempting to open this area back up, just the one area where the juvenile was attacked. But this area that we're speaking of, Russian Creek, that's within a mile to all this of where my original attack took place in 1993.
Spooky stuff. Eli, can you give us the elevator pitch for this episode? What's going on here?
Well, there's reports of Bigfoot and Dogman having territories in the land between the lakes. So people say that there is Dogman up in the north side of the LBL and Bigfoot in the south, with a middle ground that is kind of like that's the no man's land. So that's the pitch, I guess. Bigfoot and Dogman fight in LBL. That's the pitch. Is that the truth? Guess you have to watch it to find out.
Have to check it out. Yeah. This is another piece of the kind of grand, it's how I think of it in my head, exploration of the land between the lakes that's, being put together by Small Town Monsters. And there's a lot of dimensions to the strange stuff that goes on there. And I think we found collectively that it wasn't possible to fit it all into one series or one book or one feature-length documentary. So, Eli was kind enough to explore this aspect of the rumors that surround that place. So very cool episode. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, definitely do that. But here's a question from me. Just based on being a Sasquatch researcher, having gone to all of these places, and Andrew, feel free to chime in on this if you have any thoughts. But do you think the land between the lakes presents a unique situation with regard to the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, paranormal stuff? Or is it something that we kind of see recurring in other areas?
I'm so sorry. I just saw the most recent comment.
Maybe, Joe. Maybe. There's a lot we don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of stories, a lot of unique stories that come from the LBL, but as far as it providing, I don't know. The area itself is very unique, and it's got a very unique history, with eminent domain going on, and the creation of the lakes, and the fact that it is an island, essentially, there in Kentucky, Tennessee. All of that plays into, and then you have the whole history of, Native Americans being forced from their land. So you have Native American burial grounds there. You have the Civil War was partially fought in LBL. So you have a lot of unmarked Confederate and Union soldier graves there, which is talked about in this episode. And then on top of that, you have all the people who were settling there and then were eminent domained out of there. And so you have family graves that are all there in the LBL. And so it's kind of a mixture. And I'm sure you can find similar situations all over the United States, but it's so condensed in this 40-mile stretch of land there in the LBL that I think it contributes to this kind of overall weirdness, this kind of collective energy of people who were all discontent when they passed, I guess is one way you could put it. They're all people who have been victimized or oppressed by some other power, even, the people who were eminent domain, that's how they felt about the US government. So it's like, it's got a repeat history of that same thing happening over and over and over again. And I think one thing I talk about in Aaron's book actually is it possible that Dogman, this oppressive supernatural entity, if it's supernatural, could that be a sort of modern mythologizing of those feelings that people still have about oppressive powers? There it is, Hunting Grounds, Dogman of the Lakes.
Featuring Eli Watson.
Yes, sometimes I forget I'm in that book.
You are.
I'm in. Wow, that's crazy. I need to write a book. Anyways, one day.
It's an interesting thing because you kind of have this repeat pattern, like you said, of displacement, death on a large scale, and then you have the industrialization, the mining industry, the logging industry, very large changes made to the environment by human beings on a repeat basis. So it's a very strange place. You could point to any of the weird stuff that goes on there and say, oh, this is all because of that. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I wrote a book about it and I still don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lycan Weeb has an interesting comment for us, and I'm going to jump right in on this. I'm going for it. STM, wake up. I'm awake, brother. Dogman and Bigfoot are not at war. Quite the opposite. They are breeding, creating crossbred chimeras. Eli, will you cover this in the future? It is of the utmost importance. I am interested in this. Lycan Weeb, please reach out to me. I'm going to put my email address on screen right now, aaron@smalltownmonsters.com. I'm interested in this, brother. Any sources you got, any reports, send them my way. Not joking. I check that email about 50 times a day. aaron@smalltownmonsters.com. That goes for anybody else in the audience. If there's something you think we should check out, shoot me an email. You never know what may come up in a future episode. Let's see. Mr. Dollar Store Gloves. Was I wrong to secretly hope that Dogman Bigfoot Wars would be like War of the Gargantuas? Classic movie. One was from the mountains and the other from the water. Yeah. Gyra and Sanda. Great film. Toho classic from the 70s, I believe. Indirect sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World. Another classic.
What?
It goes deep, my friend. Matthew and I are starting a Godzilla podcast. Hang on. Joe Mapes watched Sasquatch Sunset tonight. That was a bad sentence. Watched Sasquatch Sunset tonight. Watched Sasquatch Sunset tonight, comma. Any thoughts? Nailed it. I have not seen that film yet. What about you guys?
Nope, don't know it. But I do want to compliment Mr. Dollar Store Gloves on his handle and profile picture. Both very, very great. I think he wins the evening.
He frequently wins username of the evening. It happens a lot. Yeah. Sometimes I do have to give the award to other people because Mr. Dollar Store Gloves is now inaugural Hall of Fame. He started the username of the evening Hall of Fame. I've got this whole headcanon built up around it. Yeah. Beat 3 Airspace, one of our regular viewers, asks, I want to know, Andrew, has any more sightings of Flatwoods happened since 1952?
So the best answer, and it's the one nobody wants, but the best answer is kind of like, I don't know. But let me tell you guys something really fascinating. And in hindsight, I hate so much that I didn't get more information from this lady. And I hope that she comes back in at some point and talks to me because I want to actually have her fill out a full report. I didn't have access to reports at the time. But there was a lady that came here who I don't think she currently lives here now, but she grew up here. And at the time of this story that she came in and told me, again, she literally told it to me and then wasn't here for very much longer and left. So actually, I think that I did immediately go back and write down what details I can remember on a Word document. But let me tell you what I can remember. This was like in 1980. Actually, let me preface with why she came in here in the first place. So she came in here just assuming, like she didn't know anything about the Flatwoods Monster other than her personal experience. And she thought the Flatwoods Monster Museum is where you come to tell your Flatwoods Monster story, like the one that you have. And hers was literally the first. Hers was the first for me and the last. But she came in and she said, well, I saw the Flatwoods Monster. And I was like, what, when, where, what, and she said, yeah, she said it was, I want to say, she said like 1980, but whatever it was around that time. She said she was up on a hill in the Flatwoods area. and the reason why she was up there was her boyfriend at the time was working on clearing a field, and she was just with him. So while they were up there, she said that like spontaneously a bunch of green smoke started billowing out of the field they were in, and it was somewhat close to them. And their first thought was, oh no, the field's on fire. But it was green, and it was coming out of one spot. It was localized. It didn't spread. So they were just watching it, and she said the smoke kind of dissipated, and in where it was coming from, she said there was a tall figure that was about 10 feet tall. She said that more or less, and she was kind of gesturing around the room, looked like what is in here. She was like, it had like kind of the same head. She said, but the body just kind of just went straight down and kind of flowed out. Like it didn't really have a lot of features, but she's like, the head and everything was the same, and it was green. So they saw this thing and got scared, jumped in their truck, burned rubber down off the hill, and went to her boyfriend's family home. And they were both panicked, went and told her boyfriend's father what they saw. And he told her, what you saw was the Flatwoods Monster. When you see it, just leave it alone and leave, and it won't bother you. That was the story. So I was like, oh, this is news to me. I've never heard. So my only recollection is, story, like the main story is September 12th, 1952. That's the main Flatwoods Monster story. As far as I'm concerned, that's kind of the Flatwoods Monster story. But there are some other stories that sort of peripherate around it, and different people draw different connections to different things, and some don't. But that's the only one that I've ever heard of that seems like modern, and by modern I mean like, a lot more recent than 52 anyway. And that was attributed, the witnesses or people associated with the witnesses attributed the Flatwoods Monster to it. But I mean, I have no idea. And as far as, she never had any other experiences like that. That was the only one. So, who knows is the best answer I can give. Because something that I think a lot of people learned from the maze and other witnesses that came forward that were early, like from the 50s and 60s and probably 70s. I think the average person saw the kind of ridicule that these people had to go through. And I think, in my opinion, starting in the 70s and moving forward, I think you get probably a whole lot less reports, because a lot of people figured out, well, I don't want anybody thinking I'm crazy, so I'm keeping it to myself. Because the way this lady explained this to me, so she was dead set that this happened to her roughly 40 years ago, and that, she could more or less count on one hand how many people she'd ever recounted it to. So that always kind of leads me back to, Lord knows what's happening that we have no idea about, and that we'll never know anything about. But really, I mean, I don't know if there were any other Flatwoods Monster sightings, because kind of at the end of the day, was there ever a Flatwoods Monster sighting? And I really don't know. I mean, that's sort of the truth of the matter. And the only reason why I say I don't know, that's not to make people think that I don't believe what happened or I don't believe the witnesses, is the more that I delve into these sort of subjects, the more I delve, the more murky it all seems. And I don't know if that's the way, the experience you all have, to where at the beginning I was perfectly happy to just believe a story and be fine with it. But I don't know. If it's almost like if I didn't experience it, I don't know what to believe.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? But I've always found that story interesting ever since she told it to me. So
Yeah.
a possible modern Flatwoods Monster encounter.
Very cool. Great question, B3 Airspace. Love that. It's recorded here. Future researchers, write this down.
Right then. I want to add on to what Andrew was saying. It certainly is that way for me. The deeper I look into something, the murkier it becomes. I think for me, the greatest example was that George Adamski documentaries I put together last year. And the deeper I dove into that case, the more different details came out that you wouldn't find in a normal, Wikipedia search, or even if you just picked up one book on the topic, you wouldn't find these other sources. And once you start putting the puzzle pieces together, it makes, I think, especially when you're dealing with so many different people, and even people witnessing the same event seem to perceive it differently.
Yeah.
And it's, and it's hard to make sense of it. And not even necessarily perceive it differently, but describe it differently so that the person reading what they wrote about it understand it differently. And it's like suddenly you're dealing with all these different factors that make it hard to find the exact truth. And I feel like historians have been dealing with that forever, you know?
Yeah. That's actually one thing that's led me to question nearly everything, because like Eli was saying, I have witnessed kind of like what I was talking about earlier in the show about where people are finding their creativity, but also possibly filling in where it shouldn't be filled in gaps. And I have watched where one person's gap transfers to another person and it just changes. And it's instant, and it's happened between the lowest number of people possible, 2 people, and that it's instant. So then I'm thinking, okay, great. So now this person's going to get interviewed by this author, who's then going to make it whatever they want it to be. I mean, and I hate to say it that way, but in a way, the stories and the details are shaped by the storytellers. So to where just at every point, everything can be changed, and probably the scariest way is when they're completely unconscious and completely accidental. That's what I witness a lot, is completely accidental. Because let's say somebody changes a story on purpose, you hook them up to a lie detector test and ask them questions, you might be able to detect it. If somebody changes a story completely, but on complete accident, hook them up to a lie detector test, they're not going to be lying. So I don't know where this conversation leads. It gets real kind of scary and existential real quick. And then all of a sudden we're not even talking about the paranormal anymore or cryptozoology. We're talking about, kind of the essence of human nature and communication. But it's very, it's the stickiest wicket I've ever been involved with. And I'm just trying to have a good time. I'm just trying to create a space for people to have fun with the Flatwoods Monster. And I'm still in the stickiest wicket I've ever heard of. So
it kind of draws you in. You become a part of the narrative, whether you want to or not. Yeah. The deeper you dig. Great question, Beat 3 Airspace. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Well, we are creeping up past the 50-minute mark, but we've got time for some more of these killer questions from our friends in the audience. Scott Walker asks, is the Dogman a pack animal or will they travel alone? I will say that the majority of the reports I've examined seem to involve isolated specimens. I've looked at a few where they seem to be traveling maybe in pairs. We hear anecdotes about packs. I personally have not examined any credible reports involving more than 2. But, that's not entirely true. But in general, they seem to move either in pairs or alone, just based on what I know.
I second that.
I abstain.
And the motion passes. Michael Tovar, my buddy in Austin, asked, I was wondering who is in the Dogman suit. That is a trade secret. I'm not allowed to reveal that. It's not me. It's not Eli. I've made repeated requests to be in the Dogman suit, and it still hasn't happened. So.
Oh, I know who it was.
Yeah. I just don't know if.
No, actually, some of them, none of the shots in this, I will say this. American Werewolves 2, some of the shots I am the Dogman.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. If you were following us on social media in September of last year, you would have seen some behind the scenes photos. Yes.
Yeah.
Featuring Eli as Dogman. Fun stuff. Fun stuff. Julie Bug, Eli, while you're at the LBL, did you have any experiences, audible or visual? And what is your overall feeling of the place?
I didn't have any experiences while I was there. I think we've talked about this a little bit, but the nature of it was so like go, 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 go when we were there that I really didn't have time to sit in the moment. And I mean, maybe stuff was there, but I was too focused on filming and interviewing people and thinking about my next interview while I'm doing my current interview. So definitely wasn't in the headspace for that. And the overall feeling of the place, some places were kind of creepy. I think that is just coming from the abandoned structures there. I don't know. It's always, for me, anything abandoned is scary. And I don't know what it is about that. Like an old house, like a haunted house, whether it's haunted or not. To me, it's scary to go in there because it's this old abandoned house, or the algorithm has found out what terrifies me the most, and I will not look away from it, is abandoned malls. And those are horrifying. And there's, usually nothing wrong with it. It's just a really creepy place. And so I think with LBL, you're dealing with so many abandoned government structures and things like that, old homes that are abandoned, which you'll see in the next episode. Yeah, it sends off a creepy vibe, and I don't necessarily know if that's associated specifically. I don't know if you can say that is as a result of the Dogman or the Sasquatch that may or may not be there. I think it just has to do with the way we react to abandoned things. Because I know I'm not the only one who's scared of that stuff, because there's clearly a market for it.
Well, the whole myth of the back rooms, which has picked up a lot of traction in the last couple of years, we're pretty sure that's just a creepypasta, which was the result of a 4chan thread. But it's a very interesting idea. It plays to that fear we have of things that aren't quite there. Yeah, fun stuff. Very cool. Great question, Julie. I have the same response. I was very focused on recording as much as I could because I was writing a book and we were filming a movie. And I was also trying to just appreciate where I was and be like, man, this is so cool. I can't wait to tell my kid about this one day. But I did not have any decidedly paranormal experiences there. So, some creepy feelings, though. Definitely like some research leads clicked into place for me in some very strange ways. And that can be a paranormal experience in and of itself if you've ever gone down that path. But anyway, Mark Childers, another of our squad members, what's up, Mark, asks, hey guys, do you think Dogman is flesh and blood or paranormal? A very convincing argument can be made for both. There are cases that very distinctly fit into both categories. There are some that straddle the line very distinctly, where it's pretty impossible to nail them down into one category or the other. I think what we're looking at with the upright canine archetype is something that supersedes flesh and blood versus paranormal. I'll quote myself in the Texas Dogman Triangle. I think there's more than one thing going on here. That's my answer.
Yep. I don't know. I always feel like tense when this conversation comes up between me and Aaron, because we have like different opinions, but because I'm very firmly in the werewolf camp. I don't think Dogman itself exists on its own. And you know what? What pushed me further in the werewolf idea? And so what I mean by that, I think sightings of these Dogmen are sightings of werewolves. People have transformed through black magic to become these wolf man like things. And because there's sightings in the Dogman Triangle and other sightings that are online where there's multiple Dogmen. Sometimes, not that we're going back on what we said earlier where it's usually one, but sometimes there appears to be more than one, and seemingly offspring. And what changed I didn't know what to think about that until I uncovered that information, that there are reports or folklore really in, I think, Scotland or Ireland. Oh boy, I'm in the coals for not knowing the difference here, but of a family, and that werewolfism is a hereditary trait, and so it's something that can be passed on. And so that to me was highly interesting, and that's what pushes me into the werewolf category.
It's a very interesting question. Yeah, it's kind of like, I think there probably a greater majority of Bigfoot researchers are in the flesh and blood camp, but there is a significant chunk of the community that are very much in the paranormal camp. And Dogman is like that, but you could argue it's even more polarized and more split down the middle. There are arguments that can be made both ways. And yeah, I've had conversations like this with Ward Heine when he came on to talk about American Werewolves 2 and Werewolves Unearthed. You know, I've talked to Jesse and Joe Doyle about it. It just to name two people off the top of my head, and three people, sorry. And it goes round and round in circles. So great question, Mark. You will hear more about that in the future for sure. For sure.
Well,
folks. Oh, sorry.
Your last book is going to have the answers, right?
Maybe.
You're going to solve it.
It's going to have a lot of, if early notes are the indication, it's going to have a lot of ideas. But, you know, I'm big on ideas. But once you start offering people answers, that's when they stop listening. And with that, that's actually a great way to close the show. Wow. Maybe that'll be my motto from now on. STM Live, no answers, lots of ideas. Well, anyway, folks, that takes us past the hour. My sincere apologies if we didn't get to your question tonight, guys. I think the mark of a good show is one where the questions are so great that we just keep talking about them. So thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. Fred, I see you. Your username makes me laugh. There are just words I can't say because we'll get taken out of the family-friendly algorithm results. So just going to kick that out there at the end. But again, thank you to everybody for tuning in. Eli, thank you for coming back and hanging out with me. Always great to see you. Andrew, thank you so much, bro. It was great to have you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you all having me on.
For sure, man. I'm sure we'll find an excuse to have you back. And
anytime.
Please, yeah, definitely. With your upgraded internet and fancy museum and all that, we got to have you back on. Alrighty, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time on STM Live. Keep an eye on the socials for more updates about Monster Fest 2, upcoming releases. Any questions or comments for the show, shoot an email to Aaron at smalltownmonsters.com, and have a great night.